All right. So you've got the list of questions, but first, since my readers are probably not in your wheelhouse, why don't you go ahead and describe y'all's deal here?
Describe what?
Describe who you are, how you got started, what you do, the whole
Oh,
Gen X dad
kid, go
thing.
ahead and give him the
Yeah.
rundown.
So Gen X Talk started in January of 2021,
Okay.
and I started it because I really wanted to be famous on TikTok back in like 2018. It was a huge thing for me, and as you see in a lot of our videos, I asked my dad for advice, and I said, "What can make me stand out from everybody else?" Because I was making stupid TikTok videos that I hope never see the light of day. From when so I asked him what'll set me apart, and he's like, "You gotta find a niche, something that nobody else is doing." And at the time, no one really was bugging their dad with questions like I eventually started doing. So
Mhm.
I thought, I have a really funny dad. I should just make videos centered around him. So I pitched him the idea of sitting him down in like a chair and then asking him questions.
Yeah, that didn't go over well.
Yeah, it didn't. He didn't want to do it at all. And I kept pestering him for 6 months, like, come on, this is a great idea. We just need to keep going. It'll be big, I swear. And I was talking I wasn't really there was no evidence behind what I was saying because like I had no idea if it was gonna go well. I just kept saying it was.
No, and you use the term loosely. I asked my dad for advice. You bugged the shit out of me. That really wasn't asking me for advice. You were being an irritating little ass, is what you were doing. But go ahead.
So how it comes out in the videos is actually how it was.
Pretty close, yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I asked my mom, I was like, how can I convince him to do videos with me? And she's like, you're not going to. You just have to shove a camera in his face and just go for it. So that's what we eventually started doing. And that's how we started.
Okay.
And he doesn't use all the time. He films tons of times and he can't use them because they don't come out right because I'm not as cooperative or I don't have an answer or the dialogue's too long, because I know he's trying to fit him in under a minute. And I'm like, dude, I can't give you a 1 minute answer on what's the meaning of life.
Right.
Yeah, we try I try and get him like once a day, a good video, but sometimes I'll bug him 5 times in a day and it's just like silence, it's not going good.
Hey, Dropper, good job there, buddy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So the other part of that is that he, after the 5th or 6th time, I'm angry at the end of the day. I'm like, put your fucking phone away and don't do this. And he goes, Dad, if you just do it the first time with me, I wouldn't have to come back. Like if you'd be a little cooperative. So
okay,
there you go.
So it was a deliberate thing then on his end, but not necessarily on your end.
Well, yeah, the whole thing, he knew exactly what he wanted to get accomplished. He just didn't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that took him a while, but his first video ended up with 700,000 views. And, he comes running in to tell me, I'm like, okay, so is that a lot? I don't, even know what that means. And he's like, no, that means that, we're on to something here. We got to do it. And then, I tolerate the stuff. I get what he's doing. I get why he's trying to do it, and now since it's been almost 3 years, I'm much more tolerant and helpful with trying to answer it, but it's still bullshit. He still irritates with stuff he does. That hasn't changed at all.
Okay. So I guess on to the second question. Again, sorry, because I just ran in the door while I was talking to you. Do you have the questions in front of you, or do you want to just wing it?
I don't have any questions. I kind of breezed through them one day. I read them out loud. We're in the studio, and he's across the studio from me, and I said, hey, here's the questions, and I ran through them, and he was answering them out loud. I was like, shut up, dude. I'm trying to read the next question. So I'm going pretty much off the cuff with whatever you ask.
I have the questions in front of me, though.
Do you? Okay, what was, because I worked on those to try to stay out of certain areas. What was my second question?
Where did the idea for Gen X Talks come from?
Okay,
was it a product of your son's ambushing you with questions that just blew up, or was it a deliberate operation?
Okay, so 3.
Yeah.
What's 3?
Like, go to the third question?
Yeah, he said, what's question 3?
Oh, yeah, my fault. Has this channel impacted anything significant in your life? Has it been rewarding overall, or does it come with some downfalls?
Right, because I noticed you kind of went into a podcast. I don't know the history of it exactly, but I know I started seeing it long after I saw the shorts on YouTube. So did those play into each other? Is that what gave you the idea to do that?
Yeah, we started with the shorts, of course, and
Mhm.
then as it developed, we wanted to branch out a lot more. And I convinced my dad and my mom to start doing a podcast. So they do a weekly podcast now, and it's pretty much detached from the shorts and live streams and everything else.
Right.
It's kind of its own entity at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of grown. That my son and I, we started out doing it together. The
Mhm.
first, I don't know, 12 or 13 or 14 episodes were just us talking about whatever. And then we added my wife to a couple episodes. And then the more she became involved, the less he became involved until it turned into Gen X Talks. It's a Gen X Talks property of of our age, two people that have been married, have had 8 kids, and we talk about the past stuff that we grew
Mhm.
up with, because we're fortunate we grew up with each other. We've known each other since we were 5 years old. So
Oh,
a
wow.
lot of the
Okay.
history of people we know, friends we've had, things we've done, were all from the same neighborhood. It was all from the same time zone. It all clicks. And then of course you can look at things today through the lens of 2 people that have been married, had kids. We've gone through a lot. So there's a different perspective there than a Generation X podcast where 3 buddies get together and just have a talking session because they've been friends for 10 years. It's quite different, and it's nice because she gets to kick the shit out of me, and I can't really say anything. She verbally assaults me. I was going to file charges one day, but then I found out you can't. You can't be a little girl about it when your wife yells at you on the radio.
I actually watched those. Well, I don't know if it was last episode, but the one y'all put out where you were telling the story about your friend who kept sitting next to her, and then just watching that banter back and forth.
Yeah, Two
I
Bears
love
on
it.
staff at Gen X Talk. Yeah, he does that, right?
Okay, cool. Next question, please. God, I hate doing that. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll give the interview. If you could go back to your 16-year-old self, what
Right.
single piece of advice would you give yourself?
Invest in Microsoft.
He says something, he has written down here something different than
literally
buy
said, "Don't
Bitcoin
say
or
that."
Microsoft stock.
Oh, did he?
He wrote that down.
Bet on the Dodgers in the 81 World Series. I don't know. I couldn't give one piece of advice to myself because I have failed and fucked up more in my life than I've succeeded. And I would have a long list of, hey, I would say the biggest thing is, and not talking about investments or gambling or anything. I'm not doing a Back to the Future's Gray Sports Almanac type of deal.
Mhm.
In my life, there's been several big opportunities that I missed growing up when I was young because of where I lived and who I thought I was in life. I figured another opportunity would come by, and then another one and another one. And finally they ran out, where sometimes people never get a single big break in their life. I
Right.
had 5 by the time I was 20. So I just assumed there was always going to be breaks my way and just kept going, I don't give a shit about that. No, something else will come along. I'd sit down with myself and say, take them, dummy. You're lucky you got 1 and you got 5. Don't quit fucking them up. I think I would say, don't be afraid to take those chances and go do things. Because I did.
Actually,
I
I think
was.
that's very important, especially when you're talking to someone young who may not be so good at looking into the future. They kind of live in the moment.
Yeah, I always lived in the moment. I had, $20 in my pocket and half a tank of gas and thought I was ruling the world. And no
Yeah.
future. I didn't know where my next $20 was coming from or if I'd make it to the next gas station.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Next one, please.
What is your unifying philosophical ideal you hold most dear?
This is the one I'm actually most interested in.
That's boy, you could wrap that in 10 different sandwiches. If you're looking for a piece of advice that you try to impart to generate someone to move them in the right direction in life, there's a lot, but the one that comes to mind right now is don't lie to yourself. And
Okay.
I have if I could count the times that I have seen people lie to themselves about staying at a job, They lie to themselves why they're still there. They lie when they leave a job. That, I shouldn't be here and I just got to get out of here. And no, you don't. Lying about staying in a relationship, staying in a marriage, lying about why they're leaving a marriage. They convince themselves and they lie, and then, or they put up with something. Well, it's going to be okay. And I can, they make excuses on why they're doing stuff. If all of us could figure out a way, we know when we're lying to ourselves. Every one of us does. And we don't like it when other people point it out. We don't like being told, dude, you're full of shit. Quit talking that way. Quit thinking that way. Get back on track. None of us like that. But a lot of our good friends watching us from the outside, they know we're lying. That we're lying to them. We're lying to our family. We're lying to us.
Yeah.
If people could find some way, and I don't know how, believe me, you could find a way to be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Man, I can't even tell you how many wrongs in the world would be right, and how many mistakes that I made that I wouldn't have if I'd have just been honest with myself and quit lying to myself because I thought or I wanted or I desired or I needed, and just stick with, tell myself the truth and move on. But I don't know how to do that. And I don't know how to impart that to my kids because I've tried. And not knowing how to show them that and teach them that, they're probably going to struggle with the same thing. You figure it out when you get older. When you get a lot older, all of a sudden it becomes easy. You're like, yeah, I'm not doing that, because you're not going to lie to yourself. But boy, when you're younger, any excuse you can give yourself to make a change or to stay or to fight or to pull back or to go, any excuse you can give yourself that's a lie, we take it. And we're not truthful with ourselves. I know that's probably not what you were looking for, but for me, that's a big thing looking back.
Yeah, no, that absolutely fits. Not lying to yourself makes a whole lot of sense. I definitely identify with that. Gen X kid, same question.
I feel like I won't have much of a thought out answer as him, because I'm not as wise and don't have as much life experience. But I'd say one philosophical ideal is that I've always kept with me is, I know it's a little cheesy, but it's to be kind to everybody. My mom taught me that at a young age, but even when somebody does you wrong, to treat them with kindness back makes you the better person. It's not taking the high road in a revenge sense. It's more of a personal sense. Like, you'll feel better in the end because you treated them nicer than the way they treated you with malicious intent. And I know it's kind of stupid, but I don't have as good of an answer as him. I should have gone first.
No, actually, believe it or not, I think that's an important lesson that everybody could learn. It's too easy to be an asshole sometimes.
Oh, we know. Don't worry about it.
All right, cool. Next, please.
What books do you think are worth reading that you would recommend for a younger audience trying to figure out life in this new post GWOT world?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree.
I
agree.
There's a lot in there. I'm just telling you, there's a lot. I know it sounds silly, but there's a lot in there, and I'm not a big reader at all. But that's got a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah, I'm not a big reader either. So,
well, that makes sense. Whenever I train, just for background, I train AIT students for the Army, and they always come to me with what books should I read, which is why I asked you that. And most of my recommendations are science fiction based, because it's not only entertaining, there's almost always some kind of philosophical lesson, whether it be political, life, whatever, wrapped into those stories. So yeah, and that's a good one. That's a good one.
Hey, kid, do you realize when he says next question, you could just make up whatever you want? He doesn't. I could. He could ask you what you think of the 1927 Yankees.
I remember what I wrote. I just don't have them in front of me, so I don't want to jack it up, because I purposely fashioned those to remove my own personal worldview bias out of it, just based on what I've seen from y'all.
All right.
What's your favorite pizza topping?
Yeah, that
wasn't mine.
All right. Thought I could stump you there. What do you think is the reason for the division and collapse of a feeling of community with fellow Americans across the country?
3-foot chain link fences.
Ooh, expand on that.
Well,
please.
if you go back and you look at neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods when cities were growing in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, I found it. I'm probably the only dude who even picked up on this because it probably is insignificant, but I noticed in pictures and in home movies and stuff that neighbors had a 3-foot tall fence in their front yard and their backyard, and the next neighbor and the next neighbor. And even when they got to 6-foot chain link fences, you could see 10 yards in each direction, 10 houses and their backyards in those 10. And it never bothered anybody. The privacy thing didn't really seem to be a big deal back then. Everybody knew everybody. You knew every neighbor. When I'd ask my grandparents wherever they lived, and they're like, well, I knew, they could tell you 10 neighbors and the people on the street behind them and the people across the street. And it really was, can I borrow a cup of sugar type of a situation. And then walls went up, and by the 60s, they were building block walls everywhere. And the 70s, even when the houses went in, brand new, the houses went in, they had block walls and fences you couldn't see over or see through. And everybody had their personal property and personal space. I get that. I get that you might want that. But my grandfather grew up, or he raised his family in Latuna Canyon in Sun Valley, California. And I remember one time he told me the fires would always come through the canyons. You guys always hear about fires in California going through Malibu and all that. Latuna Canyon had fires also. And one day, the fire was coming down the canyon. It was the middle of the day and he had the day off. He ran around to every house on his street, got into every guy's garage, put ladders up, got garden hoses and put them on all the rooftops and turned them on. And as he was telling me the story, and I was a very young man at the time, he said, in the middle of telling the story, he says, and I had to go do this. I was the only man home. And that wasn't even the point of the story. But it dawned on me that he was not just the man of his home and protecting his wife and his kids in his house. He was the only man. He was the only representative in the neighborhood. He was like, I was the only man home. All the other men were at work. It was my job. And he ran up and did those things. You think that would happen now? You think in this day and age that would be now? And I think there was more suspicion after like the 70s and 80s. Things became more private, and you didn't know every neighbor. I don't know all my neighbors right now. I'm in a neighborhood where there's 2,000 houses. I bet I know 6 people. I just don't know every single person like they did. And I think the chain link fences, because they would stop and talk to their neighbors. They were outside mowing their yard, and they'd walk up to the fence. They'd put their elbow on the fence and lean there. And, the women would be outside watching their kids play with a cup of coffee and rollers in their hair in the backyard, and kids are playing, but they're talking over the little 3-foot chain link fence, and it was just a sense of your neighbor was just like part of your family. It was an incredible thing to look at in pictures and then go ask questions and try to understand what it was like back then. And don't ask me when it switched, but you can look at any time from, the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and skip ahead to the late 70s and 80s, and it's different. Now, I don't know what happened if there was an event. I don't know if somebody just got a wild hair up their ass. Whatever it was different, and it wasn't as good as it was. So when I say 3-foot tall chain link fences, it pops right in my head what life must have been like back then for those people.
That makes a lot of sense. And that definitely plays a part locally, right? When I was asking that question, I was thinking more along the lines of, when I was a kid, you could meet anyone anywhere. And there was never who am I talking to? What is their belief system? What is their structures? Do they share the same values as me? It was more of a, you don't aggress against me, I want to aggress against you, and everything else after that is fine. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore in a broader scheme. I mean, I was in the Army, so I've lived all over the country.
You go to the division like that, nobody, when I was growing up, nobody cared what your politics were. Nobody cared what your religion was. It was like the big things when I was probably 11 till 19 was, who are you? What's your name? Where do you live? And then maybe I'd get into something personal, like who's your baseball team? And after that, it was kind of like, well, I'm also, Hindu. Yeah, far out, man. Well, I'm also a Democrat or Republican. Yeah, I don't give a shit. I could care. It didn't even come up. Who cared? You were a person first, and then all those things
Right.
fell behind. But now there are people that if they find out you're a Republican or a Democrat, they want nothing to do with you. You cannot be friends. That's it.
Right.
And it stops right there.
Right. And this fascinates me because, again, I was in the Army and it was never an issue. Like, everybody had their own personal politics, but it just didn't play a part in our daily life. And now that I'm retired and I'm out and I'm living in the real world, as they say, I've noticed it more and more in the 7 years since I've been retired, and it's getting kind of old,
Well, just remember people that play identity politics where they want to know what, before they can be your friend, they want to know who you voted for in the last election, what's your stance on guns and abortion and pronouns.
Mhm.
Those are always the most shallow people you'll ever meet. There's no depth to them at all. None at whatsoever. They're just shallow.
Yeah, I concur. It just seems like they're more numerous than I think they
Yeah.
used to be.
I think
Okay.
that social media has played a big role in division, especially, he brought up the block walls and people aren't talking to your neighbors as much. Well, why talk to your neighbor when I can get on my phone and meet new people through social media? Social
Yeah.
media has done great things for communication. Like I can talk to people across the country and be
Mhm.
great friends, but it makes me less willing to go to my neighbor and ask them how they're doing, And I think that
Yeah.
social media has taken a hold of like a lot of the younger generation, including me. I have a problem with social media. I find myself on Instagram way too much, and I'm like, man, I should go do something instead of just sitting here letting my brain rot. So it's a huge thing for division.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I think you nailed that one for sure. Definitely an issue. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Next question, please.
What are your hard limits on things? Can be
Yeah.
anything that you will not tolerate.
That's probably a pretty short list. I don't tolerate any sort of abuse towards another person. I mean, you can yell at them, I guess is not what I mean, but I've been in grocery stores where someone's hurting someone else and I've stopped them. I've been in parking lots where a woman's smacking a kid around way more than that. You're hurting them now, you're abusing them, you're not correcting them. I don't tolerate any abuse towards, I guess, kids and women come to my mind first of that kind at all. Like there's a limit right there. I find myself fighting back other limits. Like I keep you see all these videos of people stealing, like a mass group of 12 people runs in and steals. How come I'm never the guy at the front door when they go running by? Because I guarantee that I'd stand there and go, you're going to have to get by me to do this. You want to do this? Go ahead, but you're not getting away free. I'm going to hurt every single one of you on the way out the door. I don't you don't like it, arrest me. Go ahead. I don't care. What you're doing is wrong. So I'm getting some limits on. I don't think I could stand by and just watch that happen, even though there's no, they're just stealing tennis shoes or whatever. I'm getting some new limits, man. This society is creating some new limits with me, but I tolerate a lot of other stuff, differences of opinion, even when people are being stupid. I argue with them and we discuss it, but at the end of the day, I'll have a beer with anybody. I don't care. It doesn't matter if we're just talking stuff, because that's the way I was brought up. At the end of the day, I don't care if we yell about politics for an hour. When we're done, it's like, well, you want to have a beer and go get something to eat, because you're past it. I am anyway. I know people nowadays aren't past it. They live in that argument with the guy they argued with for 5 days, and they tell everyone, I was in a store and I argued with this big guy with a beard. He was wearing a Dodger cap and got argued with this guy. That's all they do is they relive the moment because they can't. That's their whole focus. I'm not like that. I don't. I kind of. It's like I can get to a heated argument, but then I can brush it off and move on and go do something else. I don't care. So I have limits, but it's basically has to do with women and children. Other than that, a lot of things I don't care about.
Yeah. So follow on that, because I absolutely agree. The role of men in society has been historically just that, to be a protector. Do you see that role going away for too many men? Seems like there's a whole lot of men that aren't doing their job.
Yeah, ton of them. And the worst part is that there's a lot of men that no longer assume that role. And when you confront them and go, dude, you kind of got to pick up the pace here. This is what you're built for. and they don't want to do it and they don't feel like doing it, they back up and go, hey man, I'm just trying to be equal with, I'm giving the woman a chance to speak up for herself, man. I'm being sensitive here by standing down, and your toxic masculinity is showing through. And it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Just say you're going to act like a little girl and go stand over there with the little girls, and don't stand up when the other girls are being abused. You make sure you stand there and just, talk about it. I'll be one of the guys who protects them, because that's what you should be doing. And you tell them like it is. And I think they're hiding behind, when they don't want to do something like that, when they don't want to stand up and be a protector, they don't want to be a stronger partner in relationship. They hide behind how they're doing the right thing, man, by being sensitive and allowing the situation to unfold, man. I'm trying to counterculture you here, and let's just all, get along. And it's not the right answer. Then you, like Winston Churchill said, for evil to rule the world, all good men must do is nothing. So all these people that are standing down, they're just letting everybody else run right over the top of them and pretending they're doing it because they're noble.
Yeah, no, I think that nails it. I have a follow-on to that, but I kind of want to direct that at Gen X Kid real quick. Same question.
Oh, okay. The hard limits thing, it's hard to expand on what my dad said, because he kind of said everything I was saying. I'm not trying to skip the question, but on the topic of friends and that he can have a drink with anybody, I think I wish more people were like us in that sense. I have friends that are of all races, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. If you're a good person that I enjoy spending time with, I don't care what your beliefs are. If I enjoy having a good time with you, that's what matters most to me. Is if you're a good person that I find myself like have a positive influence with, that's what matters most. So I feel like people dig too deep into having similar exact values, because you're not going to grow as a person if you surround yourself with people that are exactly like you.
That's true.
How do you find people exactly like you too? How do you, because I've stopped people and said, okay, so you're only going to talk to someone who is a liberal, a Democrat, is against abortion, against guns. And okay, so if you have a list of 10 things that you're hard fast on, I've asked people this, how do you find friends? How do you find people that agree exactly with everything you agree with? That's got to be a pretty small room of people.
Well, I think that we can take that back to your son's answer, which is social media. They find their echo chambers on social media, for sure. Okay, so my follow-on to your answer is, I have a theory on why men have become like this, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to give a little bit of myself away here. I think it's the state, the state as a whole. Because depending on where you live, like I'm in Oklahoma, so it's not really a big deal here. Men are men here. But imagine you're in somewhere like New York, where that guy is being charged for saving that, I think it was an old lady on the subway from some homeless dude that was trying to hurt her.
Right.
And now he's the one in jail. And the old lady has said, I wish he had not stepped in. Right. In that dynamic, where it's citizen versus state now, in this dynamic, what incentive is there for men to be men?
Yeah, it's exactly what incentive. Take it a step further. What incentive is there for cops to be cops when they know they're going to get prosecuted for doing their job? I agree. The state is a big issue. You've touched on a very important topic that is absolutely correct.
Okay, all right. We'll put a pin in that one, because I think we hit a point of disagreement there, but that makes sense in a way. Okay, cool. Next question, please.
Shall not be infringed. Correct or incorrect?
Well, I'm guessing he's talking about the Second Amendment. You can't, there's many of the rights the Constitution gives us, you can't alter them, because you head down a slippery slope. Once you open a door in any fashion to any of those things, it's like, well, if we give it and say, okay, You just want the AR-15s. That's all you want is the AR-15s. Okay, we'll let you take those. Guess what? Then years from now, well, come to think of it, how about one more? How about any clip that's over? You got a magazine that's over 12, anything over 12. Okay, we'll stop there. We promise. And then again and again and again, it's the same thing. They're calling anybody who commits domestic violence. They want to pass a law. If you're involved in domestic violence, you cannot have a firearm. You cannot own one.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if that's true, if you're gonna, if they, in other words, if they come to your house and they see you in a domestic violence situation, at that moment, they're allowed to confiscate all your guns until further notice. Okay. Now that sounds good on the surface. That sounds reasonable. I'd probably think that was a good way to go. Well, who decides what domestic violence is?
Right.
What if a cop comes in and you're in the other room and you drop a bowl of sugar and a cop runs in and goes, "You threw that at your wife. This is domestic violence. Give me all your guns." Whoa, hold on. But you can't write a rule for every possible thing. And as soon as you agree that under immediate domestic violence situations, certain things can happen, now it's up to the person involved. That every cop is going to be different. Every lawyer is going to be different. Every judge is going to be different. You can't, once you give up that freedom, that right, that protection, now you're down the road, man. Now domestic violence can be yelling. What if someone said, "Well, he was yelling very loud. That's domestic violence. Take all his guns." Well, you don't know when it's going to stop. Therefore, you can't start down that path anywhere. Not that I wouldn't agree with some of it, but I'm smart enough to know that you get in the hands of the wrong people. You've now opened up the door, and there's no stopping it. And that's why I worry.
Yeah, I agree. We have a saying, it briefs well. Because that's always the thing whenever you have a mission or an operation, and you're getting an operations order, you're like, well, that briefs well, but I don't think it's going to execute right. And that's
right. Exactly
how I feel about that. Right. Cool. Awesome. Gen X kid, Second Amendment, yes or no?
I hate that I keep piggybacking off of him, but seriously, he makes a very good point. As soon as the government can put a limit on something, that limit can be changed. Because that's the beauty of the Constitution is that it can always be changed. It can always be ratified. And that can be abused in a lot of ways. So as soon as you put the bar somewhere, when the bar is there, it can be moved in any way that the leading party wants. So it's like you said, it's a very slippery slope to even put any kind of regulation on that.
I like how they wrote the Constitution with that part saying the right to bear arms shall not be infringed upon. It doesn't give you the right to bear arms. It if you read it in layman's terms, it says, "Hey, we all know we get guns, dummy. Don't touch it. We all agree we have the right to these weapons. All we're saying is you can't mess with that. The thing wasn't written that you can have. It says the right's already there. It's already part of it. We all know it's part of our God-given right as human beings to defend ourselves and have arms." The Second Amendment said, and by the way, don't touch it.
Right. I agree. It is definitely written as a recognition of something that already exists, as are most of the Bill of Rights. Cool. Gen X kid, a follow-on on that, because I have teenage daughters and I've talked to them about this. I'm an absolutist on natural rights, just the same as you in this regard. But growing up in today's society, you deal with something in the zeitgeist that I and your father never had to deal with, and that's school shootings. Has that in any way impacted the way you look at this?
A little bit, yeah. I personally never really had to fear of it happening at my school because I had one of the very few schools in California that had an armed officer on school premises at all times. So it was really like, it made me feel safer to go to school because no matter what, I knew there was somebody there who had the same firepower, with lack of a better term. But yeah, it's very scary thought to think about because if you look at it, we're really the only country that has a ton of school shootings because of the Second Amendment. So I don't have a good fix on it. I'll work on it as soon as I get off the podcast for you. Okay, I'll email you in a second. When I get my creative juices flowing, I'll figure it out. But yeah, it's something that that's like their main point for taking away guns is that they kill people. And something that I'm
Right.
totally not stealing from the other guy in this interview is that guns don't kill people, it's people.
Right.
Totally didn't take that from him.
But
But it's something to really consider. It's something that you should think about. You know, that people kill people, not guns.
Yeah, I mean, my kids being Army brats, I used to take them to all the family days, and they'd be around the howitzers and the machine guns, and I got pictures of them, holding 240 Bravos and 50 cals. So although they grew up around it, once we got here to Oklahoma and the school shooting started ramping up, it was something I had to talk with them about, because going back to social media, if this gets beat into your head all the time enough over time, that if you go to school, you're a sitting duck. Someone's going to come in and shoot you because your dad owns guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always found it interesting how, from my generation, where I grew up around them, because my father taught me to hunt and taught me to handle, versus gun ownership. The number of guns is increasing, but the familial handing down of guns is to me diminishing. It's going down. You got a lot of new gun owners that aren't familiar with them, didn't grow up around them, and so they look at them differently than someone like me, who knew that there was guns in my dad's closet and I just didn't go in there and touch them. Columbine, that they got their guns by going and taking their parents' guns, and that's an old one. I would assume that your dad taught you, don't ever touch my shit.
Yeah. One other thing to bring up is that if school shootings weren't from guns, like what if somebody came in there with a bow and arrow just killing people everywhere? Would we ban bows and arrows? No, because it's not something that's like super effective. It's the fact that guns are really effective and way more dangerous. It's not the fact that people are dying. It's the fact that they could kill more people.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. But, I think we all agree that just because someone can do something is not a reason to go and yank them.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Great. Next question, please.
Who is your favorite founding father or framer?
Benjamin Franklin. I know he didn't sign the Declaration of Independence, but he had a hand in shaping a lot of things back then.
Absolutely. Yeah, he absolutely did. All right, you?
I'd say Alexander Hamilton. And I know it's I'd say he set the way for what a cabinet would be used for to a president. And another one I'd say is definitely John Adams. If he didn't step down after losing the election, then there would be no presidency. There would be no America. That's just a tiny thing that not a lot of people realize, that after losing the election, he could have just stayed there and fought against it.
Stayed there. If he lost, he'd have to get out. What do you mean he stayed there?
Yeah. If he realized he lost the election and decided to not hand the power over to Thomas Jefferson, he could have.
Wouldn't there have been a bunch of people storming the White House going, "Get the fuck out of here, you lost"?
That's what I'm saying. Like it could have been really bad.
All right.
That's actually an interesting story, because there was actually debate over that election anyway, because between Burr and Jefferson, they didn't even know who won for the longest time.
Mm-hmm. Those Dominion machines have been causing trouble for a long time, man.
Well said.
That's what I heard. I don't know.
John Adams is actually my favorite too, so that's actually a good call. Okay, awesome. Next question, please.
We got favorite pizza topping.
That is not on the list.
Dude, I almost got him. I almost got it. Who would you consider to be more influential on the formation of the U.S. from the Continental Congress through the formation of the United States and the Constitution? Abigail Adams or Martha Washington?
Fucking no. Betsy Ross. She made the flag.
Okay.
I don't know this one either. I'm not informed enough to know.
Okay, here you go. Martha Washington, because without her kicking George out of the house and going, go on, fight your war, we wouldn't have won. And then when he came back, she goes, are you back again? Don't you have a country to lead? Go be the president. Get out of here. And she absolutely hated the guy, didn't want him around. And because of that fact, her pushing him out the door, we won the revolution and we had our first president. So I'm going with Washington. Was my answer.
Fair assessment. Fair assessment. Okay, next question, please.
Who's your favorite historical figure?
Just in general.
I don't know. There's so many. I mean, you can General Patton there.
Solid.
I think if he would have just listened to him, and he had the army there, he could have just rolled right over Russia and we would have had no Cold War. There you go.
That's fair. Yeah. As long as we don't hit the tundra in the winter, then we probably could have pulled that off.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Gen X kid?
And you can't pick me, son. I know you want to.
Oh god. Took the answer right out of my mouth.
Yeah, sorry.
What sucks is that I love history too, and I can't think of somebody that like really stands out immediately. This is really annoying me right now. I'm gonna have to skip this question. I can't think of. I'm having a brain fart right now.
Okay,
I know.
You're out of the club, man.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I still have to ask the questions. You can't kick me out yet.
All right, go ahead.
Are you from California originally? I am.
Yeah. Yep. I was born in Van Nuys, which is part of the San Fernando Valley, a suburb of Los Angeles. My wife was born, where were you born? Glendale. She's born in Glendale in the San Fernando Valley. So we were both born in LA County and grew up there.
Okay, awesome. And then if I remember correctly, the following question is, why do you stay in California?
Well, I've lived in Las Vegas. I've lived in Central Oregon. I didn't just stay here the whole time, but I'm not saying that I wouldn't move because I've thought about it. I'm not ready to move yet. California, in my opinion, is the greatest state ever. I mean, it's beautiful here. The weather is perfect almost all year round. If you've ever watched the sunset on the Pacific Ocean, you know what I'm talking about. If you ever ridden a motorcycle up Highway 1 to where the salt air meets the pine trees, it's just gorgeous up here. And there's everything from big cities, and most of it's rural, and most of it's, orchards. And then I personally think that when God created the earth, he knelt down and kissed Yosemite Valley. I've never been in a more beautiful spot than Yosemite Valley. And I'm the guy who woke up in a sleeping bag more than once in the high desert you could reach out and the sand is cold in the morning and the sky's all purple. But I don't like the part that the government's fucked it up. I don't like the part liberals have fucked up my state with taxes and regulations and the homeless problem, but it isn't everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of taxes and regulations that don't affect me. There's very few homeless people that I do run into. I know it's a problem, but I'm not, you guys, when everybody outside of California pictures that every time you turn around, there's homeless people everywhere and you can't get away from it. It's not like that, right. But with that being said, I've seriously, now that all of my kids are grown and gone, and we got one left, and he may be going away to college in a couple of years, I've thought about buying property in, the high deserts of Nevada outside of Reno someplace and just getting a piece of property and getting a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on there and just living out my days. That'd be fine by me. I'd be okay with that. So I'm not saying I wouldn't move. I just haven't moved yet. I've been staying, and as long as I'm here, I'm going to keep fighting in the direction I want to fight. But I'm not saying that I wouldn't move someday.
That's good. Actually, I have respect for people who stay and don't run away when things get a little bit crazy.
Well, I've had a lot of my friends have moved away, and they say, that's it, I'm fucking out of here. I'm leaving California. It's taxes and it's regulations and the government sucks. And it's like, I'm leaving. I was like, well, you're abandoning your home state. You're letting them when I don't care. I won't tolerate this. There comes a point when you have to stand up and be a man and leave. And then they move to Texas. And I say, okay, so you're leaving the country, right? What do you mean? Well, is it taxes and regulations and liberal leadership in the country? According to you, those are the things that make you leave. So you're going to leave the country for the same reasons you left California, right? I mean, according to you, well, it's different if it's a country. No. Now stick to your own program here. You know, if those were tough enough to make you leave California, aren't these tough enough to make you leave the country? Well, I say, yeah, well, you're kind of full of shit because you know you don't have anywhere to go. You don't have anywhere, even under liberal rule, it's better here than most other places. So you're full of shit. You talked a good story, but when I put your feet to the fire, you really don't know what to say. So how about you shut the fuck up about California and all your fake reasons and why you left, or you'd be leaving the country too. I've had arguments with my friends over that.
Okay, fair. All right, cool,
Okay.
awesome. Thank you. Next question, please.
Says the real questions that everyone cares about. Aliens, are they real or fake?
Kid, you go first.
I mean, at this point, like, I don't really care if they are real.
No. We didn't ask what you cared. He wants an answer, damn it.
I think they're probably real. They're probably out there somewhere. And I know Gen X Dad's about to quote Elon Musk. Neil deGrasse Tyson is his thing. And yeah, I think they're out there. It's not a big deal if they are. For me personally.
Some of the greatest minds have said in summation of their talk is that, well, either there's hundreds of billions of them or there's none. There's
and who said
there's
that?
not nine. There's either
Right.
the whole universe is populated with them or there isn't any. And I personally, if I say I don't think there's aliens, then people say, what about all those things the Air Force and the Navy pilots have seen? I say, yeah, it's because there's some underwater creatures that live there and they pop up every now and then. It's always over the ocean. We see this kind of shit. I saw the movie Abyss. I know there's some big shit down in the bottom of the trenches. I know what's going on. It's a documentary, man. And so there's stuff that lives in the ocean. Yeah, there's aliens. There's aliens in the ocean. And then the rest of it, I just kind of, I don't address, the possibilities of aliens being in outer space.
Fair. You actually answered what would have been my follow-up question, which is what about all the stuff the Navy pilots and Air Force pilots keep saying? But okay, there we go. They're the Abyss people.
Well, there's also there's an aspect of it that I think is fun to talk about. And I won't bring it up for a conversation now, but there's a religious aspect to it too. If you take just regular biblical, take the Bible, wouldn't it say wouldn't there have to be a Bible on another planet that said, Jesus died over there on that planet for your sins? I mean, there'd have to be a little tie in there to something if there was sin everywhere. Anyway, that's all.
Okay.
Fun to talk about. No real proof or anything. It's just a silliness thing. But we got drunk on more than one occasion and talked about it for something to do.
Yeah, been there, done that. Okay, awesome. Next one, please.
Where do you see the USA in 20 years? More unified and more free, or less?
More.
I'm gonna leave this whole question to him.
Why?
If you could, because you can go on for a long time about this one.
Pendulum is swinging back the other way, as it always does in our country. People are tired of the political correctness. People are tired of the Me Too movement. They're tired of woke. You see it with Bud Light. You saw it with Target. They tried to cancel Joe Rogan. It didn't. Spotify. Businesses are standing up for money. That's why they're in business, to make money. The only big holdout is Disney, who seems to just not care. But all the other places are like, yeah, we heard you. I know you want to cancel Dave Chappelle. All right, we'll fine him a little bit of money, but we're not canceling him. Joe Rogan, okay, we're not canceling him. There's people are standing up for money. They just don't care. Target took all their LGBTQ stuff and put it to the back or took it down. They're there to make money, not friends. And they're just tired of like, oh my God, okay, enough of this shit. People feel the same way. People are just kind of done with it. There's so many times I hear people on talk shows and stuff now where someone says, well, you didn't address my pronoun correctly. And now the answer is, I don't care. They used to be, I'm sorry, what was your pronoun? Did I misgender you? I do apologize. Please don't turn me into human resources. More people now are going, yeah, I'm sorry about that, but I don't really give a shit. Sorry that I didn't get your name right. Let's move on. Well, I want to make a big deal about it. I want to make this the center point of our conversation. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't give a shit what your pronoun is. That's between you and your God, man. Leave me out of it. And they move on. There's so many people that they've had enough. They don't care. Do you, man. Have whatever kind of life you want. I'm with you. Just don't drag me into it. If I misgender you, it's not on purpose. I'm not being a dick. I just didn't get it right. It's only because I really don't care. I don't care what gender you are. We can still be friends. I don't care what gender you are. We can still talk about stuff. That is irrelevant to me. So if I get it wrong, who cares? It doesn't matter. Do what you want, man. And everyone's feeling that sense is growing all over the country, where people are just going, okay, dude, if you're going to turn this, I'm just going to turn off your mic. If you're just going to talk about this, I don't care anymore. I just want to, don't derail the conversation because of something stupid like that. And the more people that stand up to it, the better. The biggest thing is we would never, the pendulum can swing back the other way, but it would never go all the way to one side, because the universities were constantly indoctrinating thousands and thousands and thousands every year. However, if you pay attention to what's going on in the news today, with the debate for funding, so day-to-day stuff and overall contributions in the universities because of Israel, Hamas, the Jews and the Palestinians, and there's so many groups that are pulling back, going, you know what? If you're going to do this shit, we're fucking out of here. We put up with your woke. We put up with the Me Too. We put up with all the bullshit. We put up with the pronouns. We put up with the gender bathrooms. But now you've crossed the line. And they're taking away funding, they're taking away money, they're taking away endorsements. And when the universities now are clamoring back, okay, we'll get rid of them, we'll sanction them, we'll shut them up, we'll do this. When they're coming back, they're going, oh, by the way, you got to stop this other nonsense too you're doing. And it's so they're just tagging it on there. Like, now that we have your attention about the money in the Jewish community, by the way, all this other bullshit you're doing, you're going to stop that shit too. Now that we're talking here. And I love hearing stories like that, where it's like, just let people be themselves, do what they want. There's no prejudice there. Just don't force it on other people. And they're coming back with that, as the universities are now shutting up professors and clamoring for the investments and the money and the endorsements. I love that they're tacking some pork onto the bill, as you would say, when those right. big donors are coming back. I like seeing that. So I think that's going to help move the needle quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely see it in the air. I have concerns that the pendulum, as you actually talked about earlier, will swing too far in the other direction. And I'm okay with this pendulum kind of swinging in the middle, back and forth. It's when it starts hitting those highs on the left and the right.
You can't stop it. It'll go too far. It'll be, it'll swing back the other way, and all of a sudden there will be unnecessary and unwarranted hate towards groups. Right. It'll go too far the other way, and then you got to try to bring it back to the middle. But if you don't have it swing out far enough to where people pay attention, it doesn't do any good. But no, you don't want to let it go so far that anybody gets discriminated against. You don't want anybody getting hurt over it. But it's one thing to draw back the bow and say you got to stop doing this. It's a whole other thing to let it loose and hurt somebody. They need to know that the way they've been behaving is wrong. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your pronouns are. I don't care what you do. Just don't ask me to be part of it, and don't ask to be put to the front of the line. If you ask, you're not special. I tell people that all the time. Well, I'm LGBTQ. Cool. You're not special. You're just like me. I'm just like you. You're not better than me. I'm not better than you. Guess what? We're equal. So quit trying to make a little handicap zone for you to live in over here, because you're not any different than me. And that's one of the things that I advocate, is quit telling everybody because you're transgendered, you're better than everybody. You're not. We're all the same. We're all equal. So quit you're creating new things and want new demands and all these. That's where people got mad at you, because you went too far. You went from, when I was a kid growing up, you went from, hey, we just want to be accepted. That's all we want. All right, you got there. About the 90s and 2000s, nobody gives a shit anymore. Nobody cared if you were black or white or a woman or a man or gay. Nobody cared. But they care now, because somewhere between the early 2000s and right now, everybody's walking on eggshells. You got what you wanted. You got to where you won. Nobody cared. Do what you want. My friend's gay. So what? My friend's straight. Don't care. Didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. But boy, we're all walking on eggshells, and it matters now. So, you've created this environment, and that's what I'm mad about. You wanted to have special treatment and be put to the front of the line. Why? We're all the same. That's my opinion, but what do I know? I'm a dumb mechanic in the middle of the desert.
No, I actually agree with all of that. We're all the same, and when we quit treating each other like that, it's kind of when this started. Okay, so that covers the social aspect. What about the political aspect? Do you see us as more free or less free politically in the next 20 years?
Oh, it'll always get worse. I've never known one politician to deregulate hardly anything when it comes to,
Yeah.
I mean, you get little things where, Trump came in and pulled back some regulations for, environmental stuff. But I mean, overall, Republicans and Democrats always move forward with regulations and taxes, and always in the name of the good of the people, protecting women, protecting children, protecting old people, and then just railroad right over all of us. It's always going to be that way. The one thing that I thought was funny when I learned about it was like taxes. They'll raise a tax. Hey, this is just a 2-year tax. It ends in 2 years. It ends in 2 years. Well, what they don't tell you is at the end of 2 years, they have to come together and vote and say, okay, this ends. Do we all agree it ends? We have to vote. And of course, if everybody got together, you would learn who's voting for it to continue and who's voting for it to stop. That's what it's there for. But it's built into every single tax when they say it only goes for 5 years or 3 years or 2 years. What it also says in there is if you don't vote it off, if you don't turn it off at the end of the 2 years, it automatically keeps going. Never hits the news, never hits the press. These things come and go. Nobody pays attention to them. We already got used to the tax, right? So who cares?
Yeah, it reminds me of the Patriot Act. Every year there's a vote, and then everybody votes to keep it. It's the same thing.
Or they don't vote. They don't bring it up for a vote because it says if you don't vote on it, it just continues. Right. So they just look the other way. I wish they would write those laws that say they end unless you vote them to continue, because that's different. Right.
Yeah, I agree. And personally, because of that, with that aspect of it, my outlook's not as sunny as yours. Any input there, Gen X kid?
Not really. Like sorry, will the US improve in the next 20 years? Most likely. Like he's saying about the pendulum, I've seen it within my own friends in like a ground level type of view in my schools and whatnot. It's people aren't as strict on pronouns and stuff like that. People aren't caring. I will call you that if you want, if it's no inconvenience to me, but don't make me feel bad about messing it up without knowing. People would try and cancel you 3 years ago if you said it without them even prompting you to begin with. It's like that pendulum swinging is a very good analogy of what's going to happen soon. And I'm glad I'm on this side of the pendulum swing and that I didn't start growing up on a few years earlier.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Next one. I don't remember how many are left.
We got 4 more. Oh wait, no, 3 more. So we have kill the kids to save the kids in Waco, or maybe show some restraint.
Yeah, Waco is a fucked up mess for sure. That's I know I've watched the documentaries, I've watched the movies on it. I lived through it. Of course we lived through the day-to-day explanation of what was going on, but I got to say, if you want me to cast a vote for who fucked that up, we did. The government did completely. Was there wrong stuff going on? Yeah, absolutely. David Koresh fucked up a lot of shit, and children's lives were being, corrected or incorrectly abused forever. They were fucked up. But I don't think how we handled it was right at all. And I know they say, well, they started the fire, we started the fire. Look, man, there's other ways to handle that. I've seen other things in action since then that we could have done differently. That was more of that in Ruby Ridge. It was like, God damn, you want to talk about government abuse and just like, fuck it, we're going to do what we want anyway. I didn't like that. I think it could have been handled differently, and I think the government was at fault for not handling it differently, but that's just me. Maybe there's some stuff I don't know.
No, I'm from Texas. And we actually got updates daily on the overhead loudspeaker on what was going on until the final day when Sister Mary came on and told us what happened. But I only asked that because I think it applies to a broader context in how much harm people are willing to do in the name of saving someone or saving others, right? And I think it goes back to the last question socially about how many kids are they willing to screw over to push their agenda.
Well, that reminds me of Gene Hackman had a line in a movie one time where he was caught killing people trying to solve cancer, find a cure for cancer. And when he finally got confronted, he said, if you could cure cancer, if you could find an absolute cure for cancer, wouldn't it be worth killing a few people? And that one line stuck with me for a long time. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, would I allow 100 people to die to save millions? Of course. But in my mind, the 100 have to be willing. You can't just kill them. You can't murder them. I don't mind if they're dying for a cause, but it's got to be their choice. I kind of apply that to when you're talking about broad and generalization. I would not ever harm children because I don't think they can make the decision, okay, we'll sacrifice ourselves for the greater good. That can't apply to kids, not a chance. But and if you were going to say, can you do something over here to save something over here? Yeah, absolutely. If these people are willing to be part of it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I asked the question, because Waco was a penultimate moment in my life when I realized that maybe not everybody in government was a good guy.
Yeah.
So now I look at what's going on now with, people talking about trans rights and, I think it was your governor actually vetoed the bill, but wasn't there something about taking kids away if parents don't affirm gender? And I know why they're doing it, because they think they're trying to save the kids, but really they're sacrificing the kids.
Well, that was a much more pinpointed argument it was trying to force everybody in one stroke of the pen to say, you will abide by your children's choices or we'll take them from you. And even parents of transgendered kids went, what the fuck are you talking about? You're not taking my kids, because if you read the whole law, the proposal, it wasn't just if your kid wants to be trans and you don't agree with them, we're taking your kid. It was broad. It was, what if you have a transgendered kid and a transgendered a father and mother, and then this kid says, no, I want to be straight. If you don't agree with that, they'll take your kid too. It's like you had to abide whichever way they chose to go, and the parents' rights were out the window. The 12-year-old kid had the ultimate call on that. Every parent went, okay, go fuck yourself. We're not doing that. So it got shot down pretty quickly. Like, go ahead and do it and see how fast you're out of office. We'll burn your Capitol down. Don't do this. And there wasn't any measurable amount of people that were supporting it because it covered everything. And it was just a bad rule.
Yeah. But, but they were willing to do that, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, there's people that were willing to do it. You only needed to get a certain number of people in the legislature to go along with it. You can convince 100 people who run California at the state level to do something, and then everybody, 29 million other people have to go along with it. They don't like it. So yeah, that was a close call by people that had just had their head too far up their ass.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Anything on that, Jackson?
What's that, kid?
I was gonna say this is a little out of my knowledge. I don't know enough about Waco to comment on it.
Yeah, there's a couple of good movies you could watch that I know they're not completely accurate, but they give a good story on it.
Actually, that the Netflix show that came out, I think it came out during COVID, if I remember correctly, was pretty darn accurate from the books I've read. And
I watched it. Was that pretty close? Was that pretty accurate?
From the books I've read, it was really close. Of course, they had to throw some artistic license in there for storytelling purposes, but I think all the major facts were correct.
Well, that's good to know, because I really enjoyed that. So if it's more factual than not, that makes me like it even more.
Yeah, like the guy that John Leguizamo played really did go in there, sit down with them, get to know them, and he tried to tell them, like, hey, this isn't what you think it is. And they were like, fuck off, we're writing it. And it was all because they had fucked up in Ruby Ridge. So they needed to make themselves useful. Cool. All right. Next question.
Do you have a go-to news site you choose to pull your info from? Is there more than one?
I browse around at a lot of stuff. What I find that I like to do is I like to go on my phone and go to CNN and look at their highlights. And they have, similar stories as other news agencies, but I like the way they're titled. I screenshot them and I talk about them because it's the same story, but Fox News has one headline on it. And, the Fox News can say Donald Trump's senior advisor is retiring to be with his family. And CNN writes Donald Trump's senior advisor, one more rat jumping off the sinking ship. It's the same story. And you get two different headlines on what's going on. So, but my go-to for accuracy is Brett Baer on Fox News. Fox News has an opinion side and a news desk side. The opinion side is like Hannity and Greg Gutfeld and that stuff. Right. And then, of course, the news side is like Brett Baer. And so Brett really tries to be as accurate as he can every single time. He's a man of really high integrity. I wish he was on longer than he is. I wish he covered more, but he does a good job for his segments.
Do you go to any independent media at all?
I browse through a bunch of independent stuff, yeah. And my second oldest son has turned me on to a bunch of sites. I got like 4 links I click through to go through on that, but he does all his research and he's like, okay, he's big on Reddit too. So he ferrets out a lot of stuff through Reddit and gets to where other people are doing the research and he gets to, he'll tell you, here's BuzzFeed and what it's all about. He'll give me the skinny on it. So he's very helpful with that.
Yeah, crowdsourcing information is actually pretty good when it's a large group of people holding each other in check. That's what I found. Anyway. All right, next, please.
Any final thoughts you would like to impart upon his readers?
No, just don't just hold yourself to whatever values you find truthful and stick with them, but always be open to change. I'm open if someone tells me something about some topic that I'm just a hold fast on. I'm always listening. I don't like people that sit there and argue some new information. If it's new information, how do you fucking argue? You're just getting it. But people are so stuck in their opinions, they're not willing to change. Very people change where they're at right now. Very few people, once they've decided that the earth is flat, they just stay there no matter how many people say, dude, I flew up in a rocket of my own and with my Polaroid camera, I took a picture. Here it is. Fuck you. It's doctored and you're a liar. It doesn't matter. You should get in your opinion on the moon landing, on Russia, on Trump, on Biden, whatever your opinion is. Nobody ever changes. And you have to you can stay true to your beliefs very strongly, and you should, but you always have to be open to new information, changing your mind, because I promise you, not everything you're thinking is perfectly accurate. Not everything I'm thinking is perfectly accurate. So I'm open to change. I've changed my mind several times on stuff, and you start leaning the other way. But if you're not, then you're not growing, man. You're stuck.
Yeah, love it. That's absolutely true. Gen X kid.
Come on, Dad. Say your thing. Say your thing, Dad.
What?
Say the thing. You always say it. Come on.
What thing?
Say the thing.
I can't. I don't know.
Where are you going to catch him? Where are you going to catch him?
What are you talking about?
I'll catch you guys.
He didn't say goodbye, man.
Come on, you got to say it at least once.
Well, he didn't say goodbye, so I'm not saying goodbye yet.
This guy.
He doesn't want to say it, man.
You just don't want to say it.
I'm going to walk over there and whoop your ass, boy.
Gen X kid, what are your, you got any parting thoughts, burning desires?
Not at the moment. I'm pretty chill. I'm a pretty laid back guy, so I don't got a lot of burning desires happening right now. It's actually really cold in here.
Cold? They turned off the air like 2 hours ago.
This guy, no, he keeps it freezing in this studio all the time.
It's
one thing to take away
equipment.
from this.
It's good for the computers.
One thing to take away from this is that I will definitely check out your blog, because I asked Gen X Dad, hey, what's his blog? And he's like,
I don't know.
Oh no! Every single time I ask him, I don't know.
I finally asked him, can you send me the link to the blog? And then, because our staff wanted to know too, all of our staff goes, well, who is this guy? Did you research him? Did you look into him? I'm like, no. He's just going to ask some questions and I'm going to answer. I don't know who the guy is. Well, don't you want to know? I said, well, I don't have to know anything about his past to answer questions. Honestly, whatever he asks is fine. Well, everybody else wants to know. So the kid got your blog, the staff got your blog. Nobody came back and said, dude, do not do that interview. So I guess we were okay.
Well, I wish
maybe if they read it, they'd think differently. I'm definitely, well, if you read it, you'll know, but, and if you ever have questions about it, I'll be happy to, you've got my contact info. I can answer it.
Well, it all depends. If I read your stuff and you twist everything I say and rip me to shreds, I'm probably going to be pissed. But if you take my answers honestly, then we're good.
Honestly, I don't know if you twist it. I look like an idiot all day, every day. So it's not real hard.
No, I assure you, I am, regardless of how you feel about my opinions, I'm a man of integrity, and it's going to take me about a week, depending on my schedule. I'm going to type everything out. I'm going to send it to you before I publish, and then I will let you look at it. So just like I said in the email, don't worry about that. I'm not big on burning bridges.
No, and we don't have to agree on stuff. It's okay. I mean, where we end up is where we end up. It's all right. We're just talking here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wish I could answer that question. Will America be better in 20 years? I wish I could have answered that.
Are you going to be here in 20 years?
Hopefully.
Well, there's not going to be better.
I haven't been here 20 years yet. So how am I supposed to know what the next 20 years are going to be like if I haven't been here for the first 20 years?
Look,
of my life,
bottle flipping, Tide Pod eating kids are not making anything better.
Hey, you got to hold out hope.
You know what? I see 18-year-olds every 7 weeks that come through. They get out of basic training. They come into AIT. And some of them really surprise the shit out of me. Some of them don't. But some of them really surprise the shit out of me. And it's really all about how you're brought up.
I will say, honestly, that stupid part of Generation Z is probably maybe 15%, 20%. There's literally 80% of the other ones that really have the typical teenager, thinking, but they have their heads on straight about a lot of stuff. I really have a lot of hope for how I'll tell you one example. I kind of have my finger on the pulse of a lot of that generation because of my son and his influence in social media. So I do a lot of listening, and there's a lot of kids that go to teachers and go, yeah, thanks for all your political opinions here, but aren't we supposed to be learning math today? And They just tell teachers, and teachers are getting mad. The last 2 years, teachers get mad, say, well, I want you to know what's going on with Trump, and I want you to know what's going on in the world. Like, okay, that's great. I'll go home and do some research, but let's get back to math. Wasn't this a math class? And they're doing it in high school. They're doing it in colleges. And the coolest part is there's no organization. There's no website where somebody says, all right, we all got together. This is how we're going to behave. These are the things we're going to tell the teachers. This is what we're going to do in class. This is how you're supposed to respond. This is what you're going to, there's none of that. This is a movement without a leader. This is a movement of kids going, oh, for Christ's sake, shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. I got it. Global warming. Okay. This is English class. I got it. Can you and they're doing stuff like that on their own. There's no organization pushing them. It's like I said, it's a weird sort of movement or revolution with no leadership. It just is sort of happening.
You're speaking my language right there. Yeah, that's absolutely correct, and I love it. I got a teenage daughter in high school about to graduate this year, and one that graduated a few years ago, and she said basically the same thing. Is that people are they're over it. Like, we don't care.
Yeah, they just want to get on with life. It's like, okay, every day, it's all you fucking talk about. I hear this shit at home with my parents. Shut the fuck up. I got it. Right. And so I like that. I'm with you on that. I do. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I had a geometry teacher like the COVID year. So we were just getting back in person for the end of the school year. And every single day she would talk about getting COVID vaccines and why you should get them. And why it's super important, how she's gotten hers. And honestly, the entire class was just waiting for her to be done because it's geometry, man. I wasn't paying attention the whole year we were online. I need to focus up here.
Let's get back to the numbers. Well, I hope that gives you what you wanted. I tried to answer honestly about stuff.
No, that's more than enough. Like I said, it's going to take me probably a week or two to transcribe all this out. It will be slightly truncated I don't like to post too long blogs. I'll probably break it into 3 different parts, but like I said, I'll send it to you first. Y'all look at it, make sure you agree that I haven't twisted your words, and then I'll
Well, and
publish.
just remember, end every sentence I say with it's just my opinion. I might be wrong. I just, that's what I'm thinking about. I don't want anybody to think that I'm preaching this is gospel. It's just my opinion. Everybody's got their own.
Oh, nobody who reads my blog is going to be worried about anything you said.
right. Hopefully,
if they are, fuck 'em.
Hopefully there's enough people reading that someone will question it. I don't want you to say, don't worry, nobody reads my blog anyway. I don't want you to say that.
No, I mean, I'm not big. I don't publish on a large site, but I pull about 1,000 to 2,000 readers a month. It's nothing. I'm not huge. I don't do this full time, but I don't know if you ever heard of the social media site minds.com. The guy who runs it's been on there a few times. So I've once social media craziness started happening, I kind of jumped ship from all the other ones and went to Minds because they're very their code is open. You know what's going on with the algorithm, which doesn't really exist, and they don't ban anybody, even like the truly horrible people. So I kind of jumped ship there, and I'm trying to help them build that up right now. So that's one of the reasons I do this.
Cool.
Sweet.
Well, man, it was good talking to you. Thanks for inviting us on. It was a lot of fun. I hope that we get to do it again sometime. And maybe after we hear everybody's responses, we can have 20 more questions about people's questions about what you and I said today.
Hey, yeah, and I'll definitely point them towards your podcast and channel. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I'm so sorry I was late. Work got away from me.
That's okay.
So thank you for putting
it
up
was a
with my
blast.
not being
When we're
prepared.
all done with all this, we'll link it, for our people to come and look, our viewers, and we'll link your blog site right to it. Maybe you'll pick up a few people that way too.
Well, that would be cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let y'all get to it. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Catch
Yeah,
you on the
you have
flip
a good
side, my
one.
man.
Oh, he said the thing.
I said the thing, man.
That's the thing. All right, man. Thanks.